Welcome to Witchy Shit by Design, the podcast where we call out old patterns, dismantle the conditioning of a patriarchal society, and reclaim the power that was never meant to be given away. I'm your host, Michaela Gaffin-Stone, behavior analyst, human design strategist, lifelong nomad, and professional life untangler. Here, the conversation is spicy, guided by a no-bullshit, wise woman perspective that says what needs to be said. This podcast is for those who are done living under invisible rules that keep them running in ever smaller circles, and who are ready to design a life that actually feels like their own. Through solo episodes and conversations with guests who are magical by practice, magical by nature, or a powerful blend of both, we explore the many pathways to personal sovereignty. If you're ready for truth, transformation, and a little witchy wisdom along the way, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Let's dive into the witchy shit by design. Welcome to Witchy Shit by Design, brand new podcast with a very old theme. Women have had enough and we need to make some changes in this world. I have an amazing guest with me today. Her name is Ani Papazyan, and she's here to talk about, well, actually, I'm going to let Ani introduce what she's here to talk about. So, Ani, please take it away.
Hey, Michaela. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Well, when you mentioned about the podcast, this new one, I got so excited since I'm such a huge advocate, first of all, for women empowerment, and helping women become their own health advocates. So today we're actually going to talk about women, of course, but specifically how genetics may influence how we respond to our environment. Mainly, I'm hoping we're going to talk about, stress, how it affects and how different women respond to stress, medications, to our environment based on different stages of our lives. And how genetics may influence that and our lifestyle may influence that. So it's going to be fun. And as coming from Pain Resolution Practitioner view, it's very different.
It is going to be fun. I actually studied epigenetics for a while. One of the degrees that I was working on. This one I didn't complete because of shoulder surgery and I just couldn't write. So I dropped out and then the price went up and, but I did get as far as studying some epigenetics. So I'm very aware that gene expression makes all the difference. And you can have the genes and not turn them on, not express them. And you can have them and they just stay kind of chill and not doing anything. And then others, of course, are just turned on from the get-go. So what you start with isn't necessarily what you have in the middle of your life, toward later years or any of that. That much I'm aware of. It's not particularly my field, though. It's just something I've studied. So I'm looking forward to hearing what's the main thing that you find that women come to you with and you say, right, I know exactly where I want to start here. This I've seen this so many times now. What would that be?
Well, one of the biggest things is the stress, how women handle stress. Depending what stage of life you are, most of the women I see in my practice are kind of like somewhere in the middle between 35, 40 to 60s and up. But imagine if you're in your early 30s, maybe you're just becoming a mother. So imagine the hormone fluctuations in your life. And then you're dealing with household, children, school, your work, and all is expected from you. And then you're a woman in your maybe mid 40s, early 50s, where you're going through perimenopause, where hormones are just crazy. One day you're happy, the next day you're crying, or the next second you're crying over a spilled water. People think you are just nuts. You're hot 1 second, the next second you're cold,
Right.
you know, and then it comes to after menopause, which is, I love it. The best place to be, that there's all these transitions. And so when I see women in my stuff, in my office, is the stress and also asking them proper questions to see how do they handle stress. And sometimes it gives me the aha moments of, oh boy, have you looked into this? This could
Uh,
explain that you're not crazy. It's just based on all the stuff you have to deal with and your genetics. You don't have control over it unless you do this, this, this.
yeah. As somebody who has hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I also sort of metabolize medicines differently, and things like, I know that the slang term for it is the mother-father gene. I had that tested, and I know that that makes a big difference in whether or not you can handle caffeine, whether or not you're likely to become addicted to alcohol. Correct me if I go wrong on this.
Oh no, I love that you're bringing that up because it's so funny. Because as I was kind of prepping for this, is I pulled up a few main genes to kind of address it because one of the most studied genes is COMT gene, which is in a variety of pathways. But the biggest ones known is your mood, your brain function, your mood and behavior pathway, but you're also in detoxification pathway. And I love when you mentioned, how you break down like medications, how your body will handle stress. Well, COMT gene is breaks down your neurotransmitters like dopamine, the feel good hormone. Well, if you have a slow version of COMT, which I personally do, you brought up caffeine. I'm
Mhm.
not supposed to have more than like 1 cup of coffee a day because my body breaks down everything really slow.
Right.
So medication, the things would linger much longer in my system. So when I was getting an emergency appendectomy, I mentioned to the doctor, I said, everything stays in my system longer. Please don't overload me with anesthesia. I actually asked if I could have a local anesthesia. Unfortunately, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
Think, why not? Women have C-sections when they're awake. Why not laparoscopic appendectomy? I don't understand. But yeah, to your thing is different. Depending on genetic variants you have, your body can handle things so different. So two women can have exact same symptoms, a very similar lifestyle situation, but how they handle their stress, the foods they eat, the medications they take could be day and night.
Absolutely. And some medications don't work given certain gene expression. I'm aware of that as well. And for any listener that's on statins, I was going to make an opinion about statins then, but let's just say anybody that's on statins, you might want to have a look at your genetic ability to handle them, because some statins simply don't work that well. And what happens is, and I know this because somebody close to me has had this experience, where they go to the doctor and say, here's my blood tests and the statins aren't working. Oh, let's increase the dose, Oh, wonderful. Let's just add to the toxicity. And in fact, that is not a statin that's going to work for that person. So you're just dosing them up with something that does nothing useful at all, if you consider statins to be useful. So, that's another feature that there's so much to know about with genes. Like, what do you wish people knew?
That's what I wish everyone before they go do their blood work and other tests, just get your genetic blueprint. Just so you can understand the foundation like what you're made up of. I'm not saying your genetics are not your destiny. Just because you have, like you mentioned at the beginning, just because you have certain genes, that does not mean that's yours, that's what's going to happen. Because as you said, you need to give opportunity to these genes to turn on, to express themselves. It's like a switch. You have to turn it on. So that's where the lifestyle comes in. And that's the beauty of once you know your genetics, imagine you can change your lifestyle so those genes will never express themselves. And
I
I,
find that exciting. I
yeah, and I want to highlight on we're talking about low penetrance genes, meaning genes that if you have this one gene, it's not with the lifestyle changes, we can make sure that they won't turn up. These are low penetrance genes. As a practitioner, once, the company I work with or companies I work with, they only test low penetrance genes. Because if you have high penetrance genes, like you mentioned that you have ESL, there's specific genetic labs that test for ESL, collagen genes that are high penetrance genes. If you have those high penetrance genes, there is not much you can do. You can maintain it with lifestyle choices,
right.
but it's a maintenance, it's not a fix. Like people that have, let's say, six fingers in their family, they have people that have six fingers, right? Or six toes. That's a high penetrance genetics that they have somewhere. So I just want to clarify that we're looking at low penetrance genes that would, in a practice with lifestyle changes, we can make sure that they won't express themselves.
I think that would be very useful to have, like, particularly even your kids to get theirs sorted out, looked at, to have the panel, if you will, so that when they get to the stage of, oh, let me try a beer or let me have a glass of wine, when they're at that age and stage, whichever comes first, right? Um, to know what it's likely to do to you, because some people really can't tolerate alcohol and it does all kinds of things to them. Others can seemingly tolerate a lot of alcohol, but actually it's doing all kinds of terrible things to their liver. And, I believe the genetics are going to tell you that. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. And I have a funny story for you, not about alcohol, but about cannabis, pot.
Okay,
Now
same
it's legal in,
same kind of deal, right? You want
yeah,
your kids to know about this.
well, I I don't. I smoked once in my life. I puked for 2 hours. I figured, oh, that's just probably me because I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, I was in a place where people were smoking around me. I ended up getting contact high. I went into full on paranoia as I'm driving from home, from that location to home, which is about 40, 45 minutes. I had to stop by a local grocery store, get a huge bag of munchies, Doritos, chips. I'm having this conversation with myself in a car. Oh my God, what if the cop pulls me over? He's not going to believe I don't do drugs. What am I going to tell? Oh, my ex husband lives here in Malibu. He knows I don't do drugs. He'll tell them because the couple believe him because he's a federal officer. He's a law enforcement officer. So the couple believe him. We're still in a good relationship, even though he's my ex. I'm having this whole conversation with myself. And then when I did my genetic report, I learned that I have genes that cannot handle pot. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So
that
that's
was now every time I smell pot, I just walk away.
that would have been good to know, right? Do you find, have you looked at genetics making a difference to the kind of diet you need? For example, some people do better as vegetarian, others need to eat meat all the way. And full disclosure, I have personally tried all of them. I've gone from nothing but meat to totally vegan, and I do it all as an experiment. I just want to see, like, how do I feel on this? How do I feel on that? And to the best of my recollection, vegetarian seems to work well for me. Vegan, at the time I did it, was an awful lot of work. They didn't have all the products. But then when you look at the products, they're not very good. So, yeah. Anyway, I just wondered, does that make a difference?
Huge, huge.
Huge. Woo. Okay.
I love that you brought it up because unlike you, I'm a meat eater. I thrive on protein, animal protein. I tried, like you, was a vegetarian for 2 years, hate it. And what's so interesting with my genetic report, my methylation, which is in one of the biggest, pathways, chemical reactions that are responsible for how your body handles stress, how your brain functions, how your detoxification works, all those things. I need choline, eggs, protein regularly for my body to function properly.
Oh, that is so good to know.
It's amazing, yeah, how that works. And the funny thing is, years ago, I started seeing this Korean practitioner, Korean doctor who does Sasang medicine. It's a body constitution medicine. And it was so funny when he tested me on theanine, which means all protein. All he wanted me to eat, when he told me, Ani, you should be eating 10 eggs a day, I'm like, are you crazy? 10 eggs a day. But I do eat 2 to 3 eggs a day. Our bodies are amazing, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So, come back to your question. Yes, genetics can tell you. And what's so interesting, what I found out about, I'm a very fast eater from childhood because I was too busy playing soccer, playing hockey, playing with the guys, neighborhood guys. And then I was a professional athlete, quick, training all day long. I'm a very quick eater. Well, I found out genetically that I have specifically leptin genes, which messages your brain that you had enough. Well, guess what? When you eat fast, your body takes about 15-20 minutes for that message to reach your brain. Well,
Right.
because mine is slow, by the time I get my message, I already ate too much.
Oh,
So
that's
knowing
interesting.
that, I have to eat really slow, and I'm still working on that to eat very slow, like to put my fork down every time I take a bite and wait to get
Ah,
that message. That's just one of the factors.
you've really got my brain running now. So another question I have, along the same lines, if you do well being vegetarian at one stage in your life, is it likely, does it happen that the gene expression kind of changes over time or with lifestyle, and maybe you now need to eat more meat? Like, can that happen?
It could be.
Or are you vegetarian for life?
No, it could be. I can't say 100% because I haven't like looked into specific studies. But what I'm thinking is going through that lifestyle changes, through a childbirth. You've heard so many times that pregnant women, they crave meat even though they're vegetarian, right? The
Mm,
episode from Friends episode when Mimi, like major vegetarian, and she was pregnant and she was craving meat. And she was like going crazy that this goes against my beliefs, eating animal, but my body, my baby's craving meat. Or going through menopause, things can change. Is
okay.
temporary? I don't know. I haven't really looked into those studies, how can that work? So I cannot say 100%. But I'm thinking with your biology changing, it could happen.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering with menopause, so many things. shift and change, and you just do things differently. Your body does things differently.
Oh,
Um,
overnight, I woke up
yeah.
that morning when I was going through perimenopause. My hair went curly, like curly,
Wow.
overnight. For about 7 to 9 months, I had to learn how to deal with curly hair. And then one day I woke up, it went back to my wavy hair. Never the same structure, but went back to wavy hair. One of my clients, her hair went curly and never went back.
That's fascinating. Now, I've known that happen for women that have had chemotherapy and their hair drops out, and when it comes back, it's curly. I've seen that happen a number of times. I've
Yes.
never seen it the other way around. Not saying that it can't happen the other way around, but I haven't seen that, which is kind of interesting. So, can you just imagine, like for women a couple of centuries ago, maybe, actually in some parts of the world now, where you come up with these things, you say, oh look, this happened to me, and you get the whole, oh, you're just crazy, you're some kind of, it's all in your head, right? It's all in your head. Or years ago, you'd be literally pointed to and said, you're a witch, look, your hair changed, it's curly now. Like, wow, we get it from all sides, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how when you look at the genetics, and that's why I just love it so much.
It
Is
actually sounds like magic to me. Like,
oh,
I'm definitely bringing that in because it's like genes really are magical. You can turn them on, turn them off. What you do can affect an awful lot of them because, even with EDS, now there's some stories about that. For the listener that doesn't know, EDS is a connective tissue disorder, and it shows up in all sorts of places because you have connective tissues in all sorts of places. And very often the first thing I hear is, oh, eat more collagen. Well, that's great, but here's the thing. You have the ingredients of collagen, but your body has a faulty recipe. So it breaks down the collagen when you ingest it. And when it recreates collagen in your body, it's still not correct because the recipe isn't right. So you could eat half a cow a day and you're not going to get enough to change that. That is just an expression that you can't, or at least nobody's discovered yet, how to change that, how to flip that. And it's definitely something that's passed on. I can trace it in my lineage to my mom and then to her dad, and all of her brothers had the same thing. Like I can trace it that far anyway. Um, so that you can't really do much with. But there's other things that when you realize, oh, my body reacts differently to medicines, or I react differently to this kind of food, there's certain foods I just cannot eat. It's not a proper allergy. It's just that is not going to stay where you put it, right? Like, no, do not eat that thing. And so genetics really, it's so magical how you can get the recipe for this works for me, this doesn't. I'm not going to touch that. And it doesn't become a willpower thing. It's like, no, no, no. I know that my body's going to do bad things to me if I consume this.
I love that you said about the willpower thing. So as I was going through menopause, I gained a lot of weight. That was like my menopause transition was the easiest. I loved it. No hot flushes, no crazy whatever. It was just easy, but I gained a lot of weight. And as a former athlete, and I had zero interest in exercising. I went from heavy weightlifting, gym bum, 2, 3 hours spending at the gym, doing marathon, obstacle course races, trail races, like 25 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 15-mile trail races to nothing. And then my eating is still healthy, like 85, 90% of the time, just healthy, organic, grass fed protein and vegetables mostly. I don't eat junk food. I don't eat grains. I don't even buy bread. Actually, right now I'm making crackers from the almond milk that I made and the leftover meal. I'm
Mm,
making crackers right now. So, but what's so interesting, you hear about a lot of the intermittent fasting that is really healthy for you. It kicks in, it's so many health benefits for your body. Well, I did for about 7 months, I did between 13 to 18 hours intermittent fasting. Nothing, not an ounce. I was talking to the genetics company that I work with. They're amazing. They do a lot of educational workshops and stuff. And I try to go just to be on top of it because it's such a field that there's constantly new studies, new education. So I like to stay on top of it. So I'm talking with one of the educators. And I said, I'm just frustrated. I've been doing intermittent fasting. And then she's like, pull up your genetic blueprint. She looks at, she goes, look, you have the hunger gene. And I can't remember the specific
really?
gene. So she's like, if you don't eat more than like 2, 3, 4 hours, your body gains more weight.
Oh, I'm going to need to get this done.
And
I
then
need to know this.
interesting, I remember years ago when I started seeing a nutritionist, I wasn't into nutrition yet. I wasn't a nutritionist yet. He put me on eating every 2 hours. And that's when I started losing weight. And that was like, oh. But yeah, genetically, like they say that intermittent fasting is amazing. It turns on the autophagy.
Which for the listener means it's cells eating old cells. It
Yeah,
sounds nasty, but it's kind of cleaning your body. You need to do
exactly.
that, and
Well,
it's happening whether you like the sound of it or not.
for someone like me that has the hunger gene on top of others, it's not just like one gene, but it's a combination of different pathways and genes, is it's not going to work.
Mm.
It didn't work. So knowing that's what makes, that's what I love the genetic testing, even though as humans, we're 99.9%, we share the same DNA. But that 0.1%, that's what makes us so unique.
Isn't that fascinating that such a tiny
Yeah.
percentage makes all the difference?
That's why I love genetics. People get their blood works, it's amazing, but it's a snapshot of what's going on right now in your body. Interesting case. One of my female clients, um, high profile client, beautiful body. You look at her, it's like in her 60s, gorgeous body, exercises, has a chef at home that cooks the most healthy, amazing meals every single day. She has a trainer, Pilates instructor, you know, everything. Cholesterol, blood work, constantly high. Looked at her genes. She has a genetic variant that her body does not clean up the cholesterol.
That's so interesting.
So it's like, it's a whole different approach. So it's just knowing how your body deals with things.
That is fascinating. So a question leaps to mind because you've really got my interest going, and I'm thinking, I need a whole lot of testing. I really, really do. And it's been a while. So given some of the controversies that I've heard in the fairly recent past, some of the genetic companies are, I've heard that they sell your information and what have you. Now, that obviously that's not every, or at least I hope that's not every company. But what would you say to somebody who is thinking, well, I'd kind of like to get that done, but I don't trust them?
I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much. Because as one of the gifts that I will love to give to your audience is 6 questions that you get to ask yourself and to a doctor or a practitioner that's offering you the genetic testing. Because right now there are several like direct sale companies that will say, okay, we're going to do your genetic testing, see what's going on. But their whole idea of, okay, yes, they do your genetic report, And then they say, okay, you need these supplements and you need
Uh,
$200 or whatever supplements every month. But the person is not a practitioner. That's just something she's doing as a side hustle. She has
right.
no idea what methylation is, what COMT gene is, what MAOA gene is, what does it do. They cannot, they just given the report, which I'm assuming, whoever created this company, there are doctors behind it. They do true genetic report, but there is no one there to break it down for you. Like when I work with the client, once I get their report, we'll get on a call like this and I break it down, simplify it, everything for them. On top of it, I'll give them dietary suggestions, lifestyle suggestions. Okay, next time you go to the doctor, please ask them to run this test. And then we can maybe convey after 3, 4 weeks to say, okay, what's your progress? Have you made these changes? What have you seen? Or
Right.
let's look at your blood work. What has changed from before and then the changes you've made?
So that would actually, like, I wasn't even intending to go to the weight loss route. This is, for the listener, this conversation is entirely unscripted, even though that question just landed really, really well. It was entirely unscripted, and we're just going where we go. But I also have a background in nutrition coaching. For the listener, I've done a lot of different studies, and that's one of them. Um, and it occurs to me that the reason diets don't work, and they really don't, it's just a cycle where you go on a diet, it works for a bit because of willpower, then it doesn't work, then you beat yourself up, you go on another diet, and it gets into this vicious cycle. And the only person winning is the person who's selling you the stuff from the diet industry. So it strikes me that it would be a seriously good idea to go get your genetic panels done and actually get your diet figured out from that, not from a perspective of I can't eat the food I like per se. Maybe some of that's true, but the main thing is if I eat this, I'm going to feel a lot better than if I eat that. And isn't that amazing information to have? That would make such a difference.
And also, sometimes people say, oh, I can't eat this food because I'm allergic to it. Oh, great example. And this has nothing to do with genetics, but years ago, over 20 years ago, I had a client coming for pain. And then she mentioned that she cannot eat spinach. She's allergic to spinach. I'm like, yeah, you cannot be allergic to spinach. You could be sensitive to it, but not allergic to it. It's not an allergenic food.
Thienoxalates, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But she goes, they did test. I'm missing this enzyme that my body cannot handle anything with spinach in a spinach family. And I'm like, my question was, could you ever eat spinach without an issue? Because her deal was every time she would eat spinach, 10, 15 minutes later, she had to run to the bathroom. But I asked her, could you ever eat spinach without any issues? She goes, oh my God, I used to love spinach. And then one day I just couldn't eat it anymore. And I'm like, okay, there's an emotional aspect of it. Something happened that your brain connected some kind of emotion with spinach. You know how they say, "Oh, don't eat food in front of the TV," or
Mm.
don't argument, whatever, while you're eating and stuff, because your brain can connect certain emotions to that food. So there's a weird talk about witches. Some of my clients, well, actually, one of my clients, she goes, "Ani, in our house, we call you the good witch."
We're all good witches.
Yes, and
Even if
so
even if you have to do some stuff sometimes.
it's
We're all good
one
witches.
technique I did, 1 minute technique. I said, you go home the next day, I think you try a little bit of spinach. It's been over 20 years. She eats spinach in any format.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing with allergies and sensitivities, though, is people use it's one of those abuses of the English language. people use the word allergy to simply mean it doesn't sit well with me, which is absolutely not an allergy and not at all. It can be a sensitivity. I mean, if you break out in hives, okay, that's a bigger deal. But if your stomach doesn't feel good, there can be a number of things, and I think it can also be what you've eaten it in combination with, and that's not from a genetic perspective. That's just me observing as a nutrition coach.
Yep.
Does that land correctly for, would that be right with genetics?
Absolutely. But again, going back to how genetics can interfere how our body handles stress. Genetically, yes. So if you have, let's say, the COMP gene, as I mentioned, MAOA gene, because they're both in your brain break down the dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, the neurotransmitters, then depending if your body breaks it down, how fast or how slow it breaks down, it determines how your body handles stress. But you add that to a woman who's has to work full time, has to come home and cook dinner, check the kids' homework, you know, deal with, she has to take care of her mother because she's the caregiver now. You add all that outside lifestyle stress, forget the genetics, how your body can handle stress. The lifestyle would determine that, okay, now you're going to sound like crazy, or your child puts this in a wrong way, and all of a sudden you lose it
Right.
because things have been building up and your stress handling parameter is this short. And
Yeah,
so knowing that there are things you can do.
I think that's amazing. We actually have to draw the conversation to a close momentarily,
I
but
know.
which is a pity because I could keep talking about this for hours. But what kind of this again is a sort of ballpark question, but what kind of cost is somebody looking at if they just want to get the genetic stuff done? And I'm asking because, if you've not even considered this before, it it could seem like something that's way out of reach, financially, or, is it for me or is it for the high profile kind of person? Often we can think that way, right? Well, because this is next level self-care.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think if we can all do it, that would be amazing. So what do you think?
So it depends on a practitioner. Oh, the company I work with is 3X for genetics. So
Okay.
you can go to 3X for genetics and buy a test and get your report done for $299.
Wow, $300 to know how it all
Well, it's a report,
right.
but you need someone that's a 31-page gorgeous report. Like if you go on my website genetics page, you can download that report and see it's a 31-page beautiful report.
Then
But
you need a beautiful interpreter.
you need an interpreter, and the 3X or genetics can maybe assign you to a practitioner. Like I'm one of their practitioners that sometimes they will send me clients to interpret their reports. It depends on the practitioners what they charge.
Right.
Some charge $1,000, some charge like mine is like 350, I think, that I charge. And some charge 500, 600, depending on a practitioner,
Right.
what they
Which is
charge.
like coaches too,
Exactly.
any
Exactly.
kind of
Oh,
service really, the
yeah.
charges can
It
vary.
varies. Like if you go on my, like I said, on my genetics page on my website, I combine them both. It's one price, 647. You get it, the genetic testing and analysis. If you do 847, you get genetic testing and 3 analysis sessions.
Oh, interesting. What
Yeah.
would what would an individual learn in one session versus 3 sessions? 'Cause so just to clarify, I do human design, and you can have one session with me that's gonna give you a quick overview, but it is really the surface. It's not going to give you the juicy stuff. And I like to do 3 sessions because then you get to the really nuanced, okay, but this is what really makes you different. And this is something that you're going to know, and other people probably don't even see that about you, and so on. And I need the 3 to get to that place. Is it the same for how you're
It's
operating?
similar. So the first time when you come and or you go purchase, I usually send clients a Google form. They fill out your top 3 goals. What are your top 3 goals? So the first session, when I'm analyzing your report, my focus are is on those top 3 goals, your goals. So the stuff I'm going to break it down for you has to do with how to help you achieve those goals and explain you, why you're having those issues. If you're having any like health issues, or my goal is to lose weight or to eat, have less cravings or whatever. So it's
Right.
focused on your 3 goals because, like you said, it's so overwhelming. It's so much information. So the next 2 sessions will broaden it a little bit, dig a little deeper. I've had clients actually just last week. I had a client who I haven't seen in years. There's a lot of times the clients I see, they have pain. I take care of their pain. I may not see them until next time they have pain. It could be months, weeks, years. This client, I did his report years ago, genetic report. I just saw him. He sent me his blood work. We're looking at, okay, he's developed some blood sugar issues. I said, you know what? He brought it up. He goes, Anya, remember we did my genetics? Can we look in there if there is anything with the blood sugar? So I said, you know what? Let me pull up your report and then let me look through it. And then we can set up an online session to go through it. It's so much information that we can just keep digging and digging deeper.
Right.
Yeah, it's fast. Until now, I've had mine done years ago. Sometimes I go look at mine and I still learn new things.
It sounds so much like human design. It's wild, right? Human design is more energy, and this is the word mechanics comes to mind, right? It's all the little levers and cogs and wheels and things in your body, that how they work and how they don't,
Yep.
and how they might change direction. So I could keep going on this for hours. You know what? We might have to do another episode at some point, because seriously, this is fascinating to me, and you've got me hooked. I'm like, I want this. I want this. I'm really interested. So I want to thank you so much. And before you go, can you please just let people know the name of your website so they can hear it now? If somebody's just listening to you while they're walking or whatever, how do they get in touch with you?
So my company name is Last Stop for Pain, and four is the numeric four. Like
So
I
last
am your
stop.
last stop for pain.
You are.
Yes. And I'm on different social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I just even started on TikTok. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I haven't gotten to TikTok. I don't think I'm going there.
I just started, I don't know, but yeah, if you go on my website, Last Stop for Pain, it's very easy to get in contact with me. You can even book a clarity call, 30 minutes complimentary clarity call. If you have any questions, something, um, please, I would love to help any way I can.
Wonderful. And now for the listener, you've been listening to Annie. You know she's not scary, so you can have that half-hour call, and she's not going to bite you. And it'll be, well, no, actually, even if you ask nicely, she's not going to bite you. So, you know, do that thing, book that call, because I think I'm going to be booking mine soon. I need to get this information too. So, Annie, thank you so much for coming. This has been a fabulous conversation, and you are indeed a good witch. Keep up the witchery. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.